Okay, here we are. We're live on for another Train Tuesday. Thank you for tuning in, everyone, and thank you for stopping by. We have quite a few things to cover and a couple last minute things that just kind of came in today. So we'll get to all that in just a minute. But the first thing that we wanted to talk about was actually some of the SD60Ms. We've been getting deco samples in on these locomotives, and just wanted to show everyone kind of a first peek at what we've been kind of looking at on this side of things. Starting off with the SD60M, just kind of recapping on a Tehachapi video of I think it was 1992. I managed to photograph an SD60M coming down Wollong there. And that's actually going to be our Railfanning cam for today too. But starting off with what the actual deco sample, this is a 6218. It's one of the special UP cab locomotives. Just to recap a little bit about that, Matt, can you tell us what some of the UP specific features are, kind of at a glance?
So this is the late build Union Pacific, the last production build of the three-piece windshield, or the Triclops. These were built between September and November of 1990, and the late phase is distinctive with the tapered nose on the ends, on the sides, the rounded corner number boards, and then some of the details, I think, probably on the engineer side of the cab, the sub-base access panel. But those were the...
I have that side too here. It'll take just a second to pop up, but we can point out those features if and when it shows up. Jeopardy theme song. There it is.
There it is. So right, the split access panels underneath the windows there. I'm not sure. I think by that time UP had sort of standardized for that era anyway, the antenna arrangement. So that's pretty much standard on those units, and then the earlier non-tapered nose versions. And then to make you go back to the other side, sure. The bigger difference on the side of the long hood was the electrical cabinet arrangement behind the cab. See, they used to just have the standard small square box that was mounted right behind the cab, and now they've got that huge electrical locker almost that has the raised walkway, and therefore the handrails are raised up, extending from the blower housing and going all the way to the cab, instead of up at the blower housing and then back down and then raising back up to mate with the cab. So the handrails are different, and then there's the kick plate that goes the whole length of that section of the handrails. There's the raised walkway for the electrical cabinet, the tapered cab, the rounded number boards, and those are all specific to UP only. This last order of UP, which was an order of 53 units. So we've got all those spotting features present.
Yeah, I can see that. Here, I'm going to just zoom into the number boards here so people can kind of see the corners of those number boards, like what you were describing.
Yeah, that was one of the neat little pieces whenever I was looking through this and happened to be looking at the nose and the variations and such, and it's like, those number boards are rounded. Were the others? No, they weren't. They were square. So,
I think that's the first time that feature's been reproduced in plastic too.
Right, from a mass-produced manufacturer such as Athearn. This is the first time this tapered nose is available in the plastic model market, pre-assembled and everything like that. So,
yeah.
The other feature I missed was the sand fill hatches. This is the first three-piece windshield unit that has the rounded traditional sand fill hatches versus the larger square ones that are on all of the earlier versions.
Yeah.
So,
well, I can actually show that with this next one. That kind of shows the sand fill hatches being round, and you can actually get a little bit of a view inside the cab too.
mm-hmm. Yep. So the cab roof, as you can see, is removable. It's there's a little bit more of a friction fit with this cab roof compared to the Aces, for instance, but they're still secured with the magnets, as is traditional with our removable roofs. So, and then the detailed cab interior with the desktop control stand, and then the three-person crew chairs, etc. So,
yeah, then, a lot of detail in there.
The channeling for some of the wire management to go down for the ground effect lights. So it's come together pretty nicely. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's see what this next angle looks like here. This one kind of shows off the kick plate going across the angle blower duct to, connecting right up against the cab there.
Right.
That well.
Right. And they also changed the latch arrangement on the side of the long hood on this later version as well. We've replicated that.
Yeah, I have a nice side on where I can get here. So folks that want to start looking at knuckle busters and start counting them, here's your opportunity.
Right. The later version on the engine compartment now, because remember, the engine compartment starts just past the end of the exhaust plate manifold on the top of the roof. So those first two doors are actually the turbo access doors. But the engine compartment doors start just beyond those first two. And so the knuckle buster arrangement is on door 2, 4, 5, and 7, compared to the other ones where it's on 2, 4, 5, 6, and 8, I believe.
And I'm pretty confident, Matt, that this was the first time that the door arrangement has been modified on a plastic locomotive. So I remember seeing in Rail Model Journal, one of the modelers had to go in there and start, dissecting the doors and putting in Canon parts to get the right door arrangement. You won't have to with the Genesis model.
Right. And then some of the other spotting features, this late version, especially for UP, has the digital fuel gauge there in the lighter gray color above the fuel tank. These UPs only had one fuel fill on each side of the fuel tank at the front compared to two, like the earlier BN and Suline/CP units did. Then, of course, you have your HTC trucks that was familiar, starting with the 40 series, so 40, 50, and 60 series. And then this is our first truck with the spinning roller bearing caps. Then, of course, we've talked about previously, this is an all-new truck, so we took the opportunity to add as much detail as we could. And so we have the truck side frames, the casting wrapping around and mating with each other in the middle to appear as if it's a one-piece truck like is casted on the prototype. And then we have some of the molded detail for the traction motors on the actual gearbox housing that you can see way back up underneath there. And I'm sure that whenever the weathering guys get a hold of these, such as Rob Arsenault, I'm sure that they'll start blowing some dirt and powdering and pastel pigments and such up in there, and that'll really set off that detail whenever you get down to track level and look at it. So I'm excited to see some of the weathering guys get a hold of these.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just having a little bit of mud splatter on the back of the tank from, the traction motors and the wheels kicking up just dirt and grime along the way. That just kind of characterizes it. I mean, even on a clean unit, you're going to find dirt somewhere on there,
Oh yeah, yeah. Whenever UP released 1943 a couple years ago, yes, they keep it clean, and yes, they took care of it, because it was in the executive fleet. But it just never ceased to amaze me how quickly all that dirt and splatter and stuff will get up on the nose of a locomotive. I mean, I was on my drive yesterday, coming back to Champaign. I was down in Princeton, Indiana, and there was a Norfolk Southern locomotive in the yard there, and it's just amazing how dirty the front of those get, and you can just see it's in that trajectory of the dirt slinging off the wheels of whatever is coming from it.
I've seen containers like that too, where they sit into the well, and the wheels kind of just nail the ends of those containers too. So it's pretty cool.
It's pretty neat. The NS Lafayette district that goes through not Champaign, but goes through Tolono on its way to Decatur. They still run the road railer trains, and you can see the dirt like that thrown up on all those Triple Crown trailers whenever they mount them. So it's pretty neat.
That is cool. So we also have, it looks like, spare knuckles on the rear of the pilot and no number boards too, which is, would you say, specific to UP, or did other roads have that too, Matt?
So the spare knuckles started becoming common practice, maybe not in the same manner per railroad, because I know like the Sioux Line CP spare knuckles are mounted differently. But that is pretty standard now. You got, it's usually, I think they usually put the E-type on the engineer side and the F-type knuckle on the conductor side. And whenever they have those labels on there, we do print that. I know like on the, was it the Conrail 80 Max, I believe? We have those decals printed on the pilot. So for your F-type and E-type knuckles. Like these UP units, the MU catch trays, not everybody had those MU catch trays, but UP had this style, so we had those replicated for the UP, and I believe those are formed out of etched or stamped brass and then folded into their shape and mounted on the pilot. And then UP just had a smooth end of the long hood and just had decals for the rear numbers. They didn't have lit number boards or anything like that.
So but probably Scott's light numbers or something.
Right. So
I noticed that they're white because I know UP used to use red, but these are white, which is probably a later thing that they switched to, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure when they would have gone to the white, but you are correct, Janik. I do believe that the early 60Ms that were first built and delivered in January of '89, I believe that those actually had red on the rear of the hood. So whenever we get around to doing the early versions as delivered, we would replicate that correctly. So,
yeah, it's looking fantastic. One of the things that I noticed too is just kind of like zooming into this front of the cab here, just you can really see that taper on the front nose, on the corner of the front nose at this angle. Something I just wanted to show.
Right. Our guys out there in California, because they used to use these on the locals, and one of them was on the Anaheim hauler. And so one of our guys lived out near where they park these things in Anaheim, Orange County. And so we got some really good photos showing that taper, and the engineers did a very good job of replicating that. So I'm really happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, totally. It looks fantastic. And, seeing it in paint just really set it off. I mean, they look really good, just undecorated, but I mean, the thing is completed now. It's just amazing. The transformation that it took from, seeing raw plastic to here it is as a painted model. really excited to see these things.
Yeah. So am I. Looking forward to them as well. It's one of those odd ducks that it's like it's so odd you have to like it. Almost like the 60E.
Right. Yeah. No, it's pretty cool to go with the 60. If you're an NS guy, you have, a Triclops now to kind of marry up with the 60E for, maybe last year's consist or something.
Right. Well, and that whenever I was researching this project, NS was running anything and everything, and I'd have to go back through my Flickr feeds, but I seem to remember having photos of the 60M Triclops running with the 60Es, and it's like, now that's a cool lash up. Oh, can't wait to do that in model form.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, and I know Janik, that'd be up your alley too, just an oddball lash up like that.
Yeah, I've seen 60Es on Tehachapi, and that was definitely unexpected.
Oh, where you've got the photo right there, Chris. That shows that is an actual brass chain on the brakes.
Yeah.
It is a wire form brass chain. It's kind of formed a little funky right there. I think the paint dried and formed it straight. So we've got to work some of the bugs out on that in production. But that is an actual brass chain, and it's not very difficult to remove from the brake cylinder so that you can lift your shell off should you need to for any reason. But that is an actual brass chain that's on the model. It's not molded plastic.
It looks good. I mean, all that frame detail just really pops out around those trucks. And when I scroll forward, I also just like how the look of all the fuel gauge and the air filters and stuff like that, like right behind the cab, that just looks pretty awesome right there.
Right. And you can sort of see where you've got the photo position there. The dynamic hatch has the 4 lifting lugs on it, and there was one of the other railroads, I don't remember if it was BN or Sioux Line, they only had 3 lifting lugs, and so we've replicated that as well, and it's correct per the prototype.
That's amazing. So jumping on to our next subject here, Janik, I pulled up the order sheet for some of the Gunderson 60-foot Gunderson cars. When you were, or did you do any of the research on these, or do you know who did?
I think that was Jack, but I was definitely front loading him some ideas.
Mm-hmm. So what were some of your ideas that you see here?
Well, like you can see, we're doing the standard yellow T-box cars, which, if you're modeling anything from like 2005 until now, you're going to need those.
Mm-hmm.
They show up a lot. But also one of the ones that I've been seeing a lot of lately is the brown TOBX cars.
Right.
We're doing more of those as well. The Canadian Pacific cars, those show up quite a bit.
Well, before we jump into the Canadian Pacific, could you tell us a little bit about the TOBX? It says trailer train, so just want to really make it clear to people too that these were purchased by Trailer Train or something as to expand the fleet or something.
Yeah, and even though it's a TOBX, it's still TTX is still the owner.
So it's still a T-box, even though it says it has sort of like little dyslexia.
A Tobix, yeah. I don't know. But yeah, and then those are prime for grind too, so they're going to have the faded paint. They're going to have the patches and the different styles of lettering on them. So that'll be cool.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Now, the Canadian Pacific, that's kind of a classic. I mean, you see those all the time too.
Yeah, you do. And the ones that I see these days are getting quite faded. But we went with the sort of as delivered paint with these, with the bright red.
Mm-hmm.
But they show up all over the place.
And it looks like you got some General American leasing on there too, the GACX.
Yeah,
those are becoming really common.
Yeah, pretty much any train that you would see the TOBX on, you would see a few of those as well. I see them going through Colton a lot. So
Mississippi and Tennessee.
I don't know about that one.
Yeah, no, I don't ever recall us doing that car in the past.
Yeah, that must have been something that Jack dug up photos of.
Oh, okay.
That's a new one. So
cool. And of course, the world famous AOK, Arkansas and Oklahoma.
Yeah, and you can see right there. There's we're offering two versions of that: the standard brown one, and then the CSX big blue patch out, which is really cool.
Yeah, I don't understand. It seems sort of like CSX kind of like had some box cars, and then they just like, let's dump them. And there was just like a mass exodus of box cars from the CSX at some point, and some of them were still pretty new, like these 60-footer high cubes, you know.
Yeah, it's weird. You still see 50-foot CSX cars a lot, but not so much the 60-footers. I don't know why. So,
pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and we're also doing, it looks like, some 57-foot Trinity spine cars and the 53-foot Wabash plate trailers to go with them. Those are kind of hand-in-hand type announcements there. What sort of era would you say the Trinity spine car?
So those were built. That's the it's the 57-foot spine car. I think there was an earlier 48-foot version.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it wasn't 48 feet, but it was designed for 48 feet trailers. This one is designed for 53-foot trailers. It was built starting in the 90s, and pretty much what you see going by these days, this is what they're running. It carries 53-foot trailers or 53-foot containers usually.
Yeah, as my computer draws the artwork here, it looks like we have the red, the modern trailer train logo, as well as the original 90s era black box trailer train TTX on it.
Yeah. Well, it actually looks like there's 3 different versions of the TTX there.
Oh, yeah, one faded.
Yeah, it looks like there's a faded one there. So, these things are so cool when they're weathered up. If anyone's into just airbrushing them or putting the powders on these, it makes a huge difference. That's from what I've seen.
Yeah, well, that's finishing loading there. So we also have the trailers to go along with them.
Yeah, the Wabash plate trailer. It's an interesting trailer because the rib pattern on it is pretty much unlike anything else that you'd see out there.
You can still see them today. They may not be owned by Schneider and stuff like that. I think Schneider kind of shied away from these trailers because they were a little bit heavier. They were built a little bit more, I'd say, stout.
Yeah.
You know, as a lot of these carriers started looking at just weight and trying to make a more economical trailer that would actually be a little bit lighter. So when you're pulling stuff, it actually saves fuel. So, but in the 90s, I remember these were like some of the first 53-foot trailers out on the road.
Yeah, some of the first 53-footers. And like you said, they're still out there today. They're usually in pretty bad shape. We've offered a few kind of owner-operator trailers, which are really good candidates for weathering and throwing them on a flat car, because you'll still see them these days. The blue ones being the ex-Werner, the orange being the ex-Schneider, the white one, that could be JB Hunt, or it could be anything really. So.
Right. I mean, the white trailers, you still see actually the ex-Schneider ones too. I've seen them used quite frequently for hauling pallets and stuff, just like raw pallets to a warehouse for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So yeah, these things are still out there. I mean, if you're modeling kind of late 90s, early 2000s intermodal, I mean, these are right in your ballpark here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, there was something else I kind of, and George, I think George Bogota, he tuned in just a few moments ago, and I let him know that, hey, we have a little surprise for him. So could you give us a little bit of a preamble to what landed on your door today?
So the factory sent us an email a few weeks ago saying, hey guys, we want to send you some of these sample models so that you can look at them. And I said, okay, yeah, we'll send them over to one of our guys. And I thought it was just going to be like some painted shells or just some random parts for us to look at. That's usually what they send. But apparently they sent a complete model. And from what we saw, it looks really good.
Yeah, here's the tender of it. Can you take a guess of what it is? It doesn't have a number on the back face.
It doesn't have a number. I don't know what it is.
The suspense is growing. How about this guy?
Oh.
Hey, look at that.
That's nice.
Yeah, that chalk marking looks absolutely outstanding on this.
Yeah, and this is the it's the Race to Promontory version with the shiny finish and the chalk marking applied from the factory.
I'm loving the finish. That looks so classy on there.
Yeah, they think they nailed it. It's not too shiny, but it's definitely got a nice sheen to it.
Yeah,
So.
it has a little bit of a sheen to it. It kind of sets off the detail. And just by looking at it in this photo, you can kind of see a little bit of a reflection off the ground. In this case, it's white, so you can kind of see that reflectivity to it, which I've seen so many of those photos. They had that, sheen to it. It just looks so good.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep, George is happy. He needs it. Wow, look at the reflection on the cab roof there. That turned out really nice.
It looks spectacular. I think a lot of guys are going to be very happy with how they come out.
And again, turn the weathering guys loose on it that want to. Just a little bit of weathering chalks on the top there to simulate the oil coming from the exhaust. It'll look great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a little bit of like mud splatters here and there. Even on a shiny locomotive, you'll still find a little bit of dirt on it.
Right.
When they can apply the shiny paint really thin like this, it makes it look really good. So, yeah, we were happy with this one.
Yeah, I'm really digging it. I like how the tender kind of follows the lines of the front or the actual locomotive here.
Yep. Yeah, it's actually the tender from the 3985, but you wouldn't know it because they're exactly the same. So
yeah,
what gives it away? Go for it.
And that's one of the things I don't think a lot of people realize is some of the time, whenever they would shop these things, they would just trade tenders in and out, typically as they needed. If one tender needed service and one locomotive was ready to go or something like that, they would just trade the tenders out and go what they need. So this very much could have happened, back 70, 80 years ago. We don't know.
Yeah, very true.
Back in the day when these guys were putting chalk markings on the smoke box, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's looking awesome.
Go back to that profile view, Chris, and look at the number underneath the cab window. because I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but whenever the locomotive was rebuilt over the last couple of years, the lettering was modified from original. The spacing between the numbers was made tighter, and so we've got that correct for the rebuilt version.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there. It looks absolutely awesome. I just love all the reflections on this thing, man. That's just awesome. Well, Janik, you also had some other photos. I think something to do with Amtrak.
Oh yeah, I wanted to share. It's actually not my photo, but I did get permission to throw it up here anyways. This is the Amtrak 42, which is the veterans unit, and it was out here. This is actually the Southwest Chief, if you believe it. It was shorter than the surfliners that we were seeing.
Wow!
Oh my gosh!
But this is the Southwest Chief here in Santa Fe Springs with the 42 on the point, and I just found out that it's headed back this way on the same train.
Ooh!
So it's cool to see that engine. I saw that engine almost right after they painted it. Actually, I was riding the Empire Builder, and I saw it go by, so that was cool.
Well, and it was out there in Fullerton for railroad days, I thought, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. So it's been around, definitely. So yeah, that's the current Southwest Chief right there. I heard that the one tomorrow is going to be 4 cars. So,
wow.
Yeah. So
Here, let me. Oh, there we go. We're back. You also had some Railfan things that you wanted to share too. It looked like.
Yes. Yeah, I went out the other weekend with a couple of my buddies, just to get out of the house, really.
Mm-hmm.
And we stayed far apart from each other.
We all took separate cars.
No, Matt, I went out looking for SD60M Triclopses, but I didn't see any. So
yeah, I would imagine those are getting kind of elusive now.
Yep.
Well, yeah, unless you go look at like the deadline in the yards. So this one was interesting, Chris, because this is the GATX facility out in Colton, and that car there in the foreground is a very interesting car. It kind of looks like the old Athearn impact car.
That's a spine car.
Mm-hmm. But it doesn't have any hitches or anything on it. It looks like it's shorter than what you see these days. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, those were used for containers back when COSC was still pretty much a thing.
Mm-hmm.
They before, I think in the early days, before there was a lot of clearance issues and things like that, that some routes prevented doing double stacks. So these things were made kind of as sort of like, hey, just load them up as a single stack and you're good to go.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I guess they must have wrecked some tank cars recently, because there was a lot of tank cars on flat cars there.
Yeah, it looks like some of them are old auto racks too, like this one on the far right with the trucks knocked on its side and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually see how this thing sits down over the top of the trucks. I think that might have been an old tri-level flat car.
Yeah, some cool modeling ideas, definitely.
Oh yeah.
If you ever drop your tank car on the floor and it ends up looking like that, well, you can still use it.
Indeed. Yeah, man. It looks like there's a number of them. It looks like four tank cars are off their trucks right there.
Yeah. I've never seen that many there, so that was kind of cool.
So the next one,
hearing that car in the foreground is for garbage containers. So
oh,
there
okay,
you go.
that would make sense. Yeah. And this looks like a twin stack.
On the next one,
Yep.
and wait for it to come up here.
It looks old, whatever it is.
Yeah, that's a relic right there.
Sea land before Maersk got them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Does anyone make this model? Because I don't think I've ever seen it. Yeah.
No,
Yeah, that's not the A-line twin stack.
no, it's not.
It's a unique one for sure. I've seen them a couple times before, but they don't show up too often. But I really like how on the side there you got that that angle. That's really unique.
Yeah, yeah. There's kind of like a chevron that peaks right in the middle of the car.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I also show you have something over at Beaumont too. It looks like.
Yeah, after we spent a few hours in Colton, we went east out into the canyon, and the trains were running. It wasn't a bad day at all. I know I don't know what the name of this train is. We were just calling it the Beaumont Local. But my buddy had seen this train at the same time in the same place a week ago, and he said that it only had 5 cars. So this one actually had a total of 8 cars. So there's
increasing business there. All right.
There's a good train to model right there. It fits in one box.
One A-line box and you're good to go.
Yep. You think they got enough horsepower per ton there?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the fastest train I've ever seen on that line.
That locomotive on point looks pretty clean, though. I wonder if they just repainted that one.
Yeah, they were both really clean. So I don't know, but that was neat to see that. But kind of sad that local trains. Well, you know what? It's still GEVOs for power.
Right. Well, like I mentioned, I was in Princeton yesterday, and I'm not sure if the local came out of St. Louis or Louisville, but whenever it got to Princeton, it was just a lone GEVO, and whenever we saw it in the yard, the NS GEVO that was actually running long hood forward. But yeah, local power is now 4,400 horsepower.
Yep, that's PSR for you. I covered that in that locomotive leasing thing where a lot of railroads they're getting away from, they're dumping their switching power and kind of standardizing on certain locomotives and then leasing back 4-axle and some of the other stuff.
Yep.
So
the numbers game.
This was back at the yard, and as you guys can see, I mean, there were definitely trains running. It was not dead at all.
I'll say.
And Matt, that second unit is a rebuilt 6000. So
right.
Cool.
That's cool.
And that was one of the ones that they modified the exhaust ports on too. Whenever they re-engined it or repowered it, rather, I don't know if it was a re-engine or if it was just software changes. But whenever they downgraded it to 4,400 horsepower, sometimes they kept the twin exhaust from the HDL, and sometimes they put the large single exhaust from the FDL on it.
Mm-hmm.
Then what do we got here? We got looks like something at the Redlands, and once it loads up here. Ding.
Oh, something's happening. Yeah, that one's out at actually the same place as the local, but we're just shooting the other direction. So that's at Beaumont Road there, just before you go into the canyon.
Oh, excellent. That's a great shot, Janik.
Well, thank you. And all these stack trains too, I want to point out, they were almost all 12,000 foot or more, it seemed. They were just huge.
Yep, running them longer.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of my favorite areas to railfan, is out there in San Mateo Canyon.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really nice out there. There's some great shots.
Yep.
That one's further out in the canyon. This was a train we actually watched them build it in the yard. They took a whole manifest train, backed it onto a double stack train, and then left. So,
And
seeing some crazy stuff.
Hey, what do we got here? This looks pretty cool with the palm trees and an ace.
Oh, yeah. Ooh. So if you guys have never been out that way, you probably know about the rock shuttle train that goes back and forth, and it runs through there. It's the Robertson's Ready Mix train, and they load up out actually right across from Morongo Casino, and then they run with a unit on each end, and they got these really cool looking rock cars. So
that's awesome. That's a great shot too.
Maybe next Genesis freight car, Matt.
Who? What?
It's a Genesis freight car that could totally rock.
I forget what they called that. I know you just called it something, but that's not what I thought it was referred to as.
It's got a symbol. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but.
Hey, look at that.
Yeah, and it looks like we got some trains here on Tehachapi. So starting off with the next part of our live show is taking your questions. So if you have some questions you'd like to ask the team here, feel free and we'll post them.
Looks like if they had a work window, it's done now. So that's good.
Yeah, I think this might actually be a pretty good time here. They might have been holding back a bunch of trains, so now that the work window's over, we might be able to get some action.
That's what happened to us yesterday. There was a work window down at Arklow, down on the Henderson sub in Kentucky, and it was pretty quiet. And then about 3 o'clock, all heck broke loose. We had about 9 trains in an hour and a half.
Well, first off, we got David Perkins, and he's begging us. When will you see Genesis P42s? You teased us with that Chief picture.
I thought the P42 was the Genesis.
Oh.
No, it would be cool to update those models, and it would be cool to release the 42 again. I know that we've gotten people asking us for that. We would have to remove certain parts of the artwork from it, I believe, Matt, right?
We would have to check with Amtrak and the agreement that we have with them. So Matt Donnelly, if you're listening, we'll need to reach out with them and find out what we would have to do the veterans unit again. So the veterans unit is not just a simple reproduction. We'd have to do some communication just because there's some licensing issues involved with it. So
right,
I think it's the military badges on there that were problematic, and there may be some too. But here's one for you, Matt. Talking about the SD70 ACU, and he thinks it would be a great model, and it's sort of a mix of the SD90 Mac and the SD70 ACE cab.
I agree. It would be a great model, wouldn't it, Guy Pascal?
Well, if only we already had some of that stuff already.
Yeah,
I know.
If we only made a 90 Mac.
The correct 90 Mac for that.
Yeah.
If only.
All Ohio Rail fan says would like to see some UPCFX and Indiana Railway SD90 Mac 43s patch for the Norfolk Southern.
Mm.
So I agree. I think there would be some paint schemes in there that we could do before we did X railroads patched for NS. I think there's some legs on unpatched items if we have the model in the works. Big if.
Well, it would make sense to do the original version and then the patch version at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, the patched UP for sure would be great prime for grind models because you've got just Union Pacific, you've got Union Pacific, we will deliver paint schemes, and then the faded and scabbed out paint on it. I mean, those would be some prime for grind models that I'd be interested in for sure.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely.
So Adam Reich pleads with us, would you consider producing the Lackawanna Keyser Valley caboose? I think the word got out that we're doing cabooses. They made it in the EL and Conrail, and they've only been produced as a small scale kit run in HO. The Tri-State Railway Historical Society has done a great job preserving and restoring the DLW 896Z. So it's something for us to consider, and we'll take a look at it. Absolutely. We have a request from Northwest Railfan. He's looking for some Sounder F59 PHIs, I assume, and more cars too. So there's something to consider.
Yeah, no, that's a cool one, and I think it's been a while since we've done those. So,
and we've got a production of F59s coming in soon, don't we?
Yeah, actually, I think we're going to get deco samples soon, or production samples. I don't know. We're getting some samples soon. So,
okay, all right.
Yep, we were showing off that F59 PHI in Metro very recently, and that was a deco sample. So hopefully we can get some production samples in to show off the new LED lighting and such.
mm-hmm.
So that'll be really cool. So I have one here from Taylor Buggerly. Let's see, as soon as this pops up here. Hey Chris, would be able to get a GP60 10076? I have pictures. It'd be something for us to take a look at, so feel free to share those pictures with us.
Sounds like a UP number. So yeah let us know.
And it looks like we have a manifest train going up the loop right there.
Yeah, it looked like it had 2 EMDs on the point too, the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's see here. We have another request from Placer County Rail Videos. Looking for Union Pacific and Southern Pacific 4800 GP38-2s with extra details for snow service.
Mm.
That's a pretty cool one.
Yeah, to do those, that would be really cool.
What would we need to do that, Janik? I know we would need the special icicle breakers, the large ones, and then we would have to figure out the window heater units.
Yeah, they swapped out the trucks, which that's easy because we already got those.
Okay.
Some of them had kind of a snow deflector put on top of the nose.
Yeah, it was kind of like a ghetto grill looking thing.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's about it, though, really.
Okay.
Something to look at, sure.
As we look at the loop, we kind of reminisce back to the days of the tank train, and James DeLuna suggests black tank cars with the blue GATX logos on both sides of each tank car. That would be kind of like a late 80s, early 90s era service-driven, the GATX service-driven logo. Yeah, it's something for us to look into when we get around to doing more tank train cars.
Have we done that logo before, Chris?
No.
Is it correct for our prototype?
It's close.
Okay.
There are some cars that got repainted that are spot on for our prototype. I think the tank train cars that were delivered in the late 80s, early 90s came solid units of 12 packs with the service driven logo on it. But cars did get serviced, so there were some that were our prototype that got repainted with that logo. So yeah, it's just a matter of finding good road numbers for that.
Okay.
Let's see here. We also have a request for some steam here. Saying I'd have to agree with Aaron above. I think Southern Pacific AC9 would be beyond amazing. So thank you for that.
Non-cab forward AC.
Guy Pasquill again with a let's see here. He's requesting an SD45 T-2 with the elephant wings on. I think he may be referring to the SD45Ts, where they were SD45s with the what were they, the extra on the sides.
Yeah, like the ones we did in RTR a while back, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are cool. We should do those again if we can. So
we have a request here for some BNSF Heritage 3 locomotives with DCC. Well, we do have quite a few H3 locomotives coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And our good buddy Andrew Gray, hello Andrew, he's putting in a request for some Wisconsin Central F and FP45s.
Yeah, how many of those did they have?
If you include the FP45, I think it was 3.
Okay.
I think they had 2 F45s and an FP45.
I'm just looking at this oddball train. Looks like they put some trailers on the back of it.
Yeah, you've got.
They just coupled onto whatever they had in the yard and did an air test.
Jeez.
You've got a 3-pack of DPU going off the screen to the left right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good day rail fanning today. We've been skunked for the past couple times. So.
Yeah.
So Alex Desome would love to see some RTR CNW SD40-2s in the final new yellow paint scheme and Herald on the nose, keeping in mind the class lights would be removed in this scheme. Yeah, it's something for us to take a look at.
Yeah. I wonder if they kept the bell on the nose at that time, or if they had, if they moved any of them. I'd have to look into that.
We have a comment from AK Railroad. He says he's really happy to see the new Alaska SD70 Max with DCC and sound, and he's asking, are there any plans to make the SD70 Max with the flared radiators that run the passenger fleet?
Definitely something we're looking into. Definitely not going to promise anything at this venture. There's a couple of updates that those would be a very nice tie-in to. So definitely keeping our eyes on those.
Let's see. We also had a request for something a lot different than what we've been talking about here. He's looking for some Grand Trunk Western Genesis GP38-2s in the 4900 and 6200 number series.
Sure. I mean, I don't know what those look like, but
Did Rob Grubber
I'm
put you up to that comment?
We have Train Fan 1995 asking Santa Fe Dash 9s with sound and DCC.
Love me some Superfleet.
Looks like he's already got some in his picture right there.
Probably need some more. We also have a comment saying that the Wisconsin Central had 6 F-45s and 1 FP-45, 6652.
I did not know they had so many. That's
that's more than what I thought too. We have NYSW 3636 requesting some D&H Challengers.
The requests for the D&H Challengers come in waves, and it's an interesting idea because I'm pretty sure that those used the same running gear as the 3900 class Challengers from UP do. Mm-hmm. So it would just be detail tooling that we would have to look into, and of course tinder, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. So definitely something worth looking into, since I think we have the bulk of the drive, but we would just have to look into it and see what all we would need to do it properly. But it's a good suggestion.
Yeah. Anytime that we can try to reuse something that we already have, it helps us out a lot.
Just want to say we got 3 more minutes left here for answering questions. But first we want to talk to Harold Alexis requesting an F-59 and Metra.
So is that the F-59 or our F-59 PHI?
That's a good question. And which version of Metra? Because I think there's 2 Metra paint schemes now. There's the kind of intermediate scheme that was reminiscent to the Surfliner, and now full Metra.
And there's different versions of the Surfliner because I got some of the Cascades unit as well. So
right. We do have the Metra, the F-59 PHA Metra. We do have those, and they're available for pre-order, and they should be in very soon. Let's see here. We have James Hawkins Jr. requesting Genesis GP38-2's lease fleet example, like the X Seaboard System patched helm and others. Actually, I think I know which ones he's talking about.
Yeah, I think so too.
It would be good to look into. I appreciate that suggestion.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's see. We also have a request for a GP50 large cab. That's what was it? The five crew cab locomotive.
Right. Was it a BN thing, or did somebody else have those?
BNSF.
It was the last 5 BN units, and then they went to BNSF.
Okay. All right.
We have Steve Smith Sr., Surfliner and California Cars. Something near and dear to Janik there.
Hey, Steve. Yep. I hear you on that one. We'd like to see those too, and we are definitely taking those suggestions seriously. So
we are. That's news to me.
We never see them out here.
What have we talked about before?
Noah CSX McCall. This guy has CSX as a middle name.
Literally, it's his middle name.
Any chance of Seaward System family lines Genesis GP38-2s? That'd be something for us to take a look at, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And let's see here. Jordan Walani, Genesis Series, Sacramento Valley Railroad, Patriot Rail, and California Northern GP15-1s. I got to ask you, for the California Northern, are you looking for the Hunter Green and the cream ones, or the Genesee and Wyoming repainted ones?
Yeah, someone else was looking for the orange and black ones on here, which we've never offered before. So that would be really cool to do on the next run of 15s. Let's
see here. Man, I'm having trouble keeping up with everything. Jordan Willani says, I second the SD59 MX. So that's something to look into a little bit.
Yeah, the 59 MXs would be cool. One of them actually escaped, and I think there's photos of it running around in Florida. So I was shocked to see that. I thought those were captive to California.
Yeah.
Wow. They were
Maybe they're
supposed
getting out. So my good buddy Donnell Wells, is there any chance of you upgrading the RTR C44-9W / AC4400W?
All I'm saying is there's a lot of GEs on the horizon. Whether that's C44s or AC44s or C30-7s. We'll have to wait and see.
Will do. All right, we have, let's see here. John Abaticola, if you do another run of GP15-1s, please do the St. Paul and Pacific 1500 City of Watsonville. Yeah, it's something for us to consider. We were looking at those. I think those came from Wisconsin and ended up over in California. Still lettered for Wisconsin, just they changed the city name, which was pretty funny.
Yeah.
So people are going to be looking for like City of Watsonville, Wisconsin. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Maybe there is such a thing. I don't know. Never say never.
Dylan Jackwicks. Estimated timeline on the SD70 ACE and Genesis 2.0. But that would assume that we are moving the SD70 ACE to Genesis 2.0. That would have to be an assumption. It's something for us to consider, and we'll definitely look into that. We have, let's see here, DDAX fan. Reiterate my wish, hope, prayer for a DDA 40X and Genesis 2.0. Thank you. From a gentleman named after the DDA 40X. Well, thank you, Bruce. We'll definitely look into doing that pretty seriously. And I think that pretty much wraps up our time with everyone. Really appreciate stopping by. Any final words from you guys, Matt, Janet?
No, I mean, keep the suggestions coming, keep the comments coming, guys. We've got a lot of cool stuff in the works that we're excited about. I think a lot of people will be pleased. It just, as I've stated in the past, it just takes time.
Yeah.
And I'll second what Matt said. Keep the suggestions coming. A lot of people ask us, how do you guys decide what you're going to make? Well, we look at your suggestions. That's a big part of it. So keep them coming.
Yep.
And with that, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll catch you around next Tuesday. Take care, everyone.
See ya.
Yeah.